Hi, Quentin. Welcome to Let's Talk About It with me and you in the community.
Thank you. And following Jamil, what an honor. Let's talk about it. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the founder of I Am Dad, but before I get into I Am Dad, I want to let you know about myself. I was born in Brooklyn, but I moved to Queens because my parents felt that was the good move back in the day. That's the upgrade to move to Queens from Brooklyn, where we live.
It was.
So my mom, she had 5 boys. She kept having children because she always wanted to have a girl, and she never got her wish. So after 5, she quit. So we moved to Queens. I'm number 2, and we're just living an average life, just going through what we don't know. So I never knew that we were living in poverty because everybody else was living in poverty until my parents sent me to private school to really separate me from my community because all the things that were going on. So I went to school to a predominantly white and Asian and then Indian and then minority black, maybe 1-2% black school. And when I went to that school, I had a false reality of who I was. My identity, I didn't know till later, was taken. So I was striving for things and liking things that I didn't even know why I liked it, but it was like all my peers liked it. But then we all went home to different homes, and then we had this big disconnect because they didn't have the worries that I worried about. They didn't have the concerns that I concerned about, and I could never achieve the things that they achieved. When we came back from summer, and I'm like, you went to Europe? You went to what, Brazil? I'm like, I went to the park. Couldn't really compare, but I was like, okay, we're gonna keep growing and stuff. And then our parents were like, we still want to keep you away, so they sent us to boarding school. So my first school was in Hendersonville, North Carolina. I was in the boondocks, the suburbs. It was just grass and mountains. Like my first job was working in a greenhouse, growing cucumbers and vegetables, selling flowers on the weekends, and going mountain biking. And it was awesome, but I couldn't connect with anybody at home again because no one knew what I was talking about. And then they thought it was too far. They sent me to a school in Jersey, in Tranquility, New Jersey. It's in South Jersey, waking up to frozen grass, ducks everywhere, mountains again. But it was cool because I learned a lot about myself. But then I would come back to my nice neighborhood home and my parents would have moved again. And now I have no clue where I am, who everybody is, and I'm going to the park with a bunch of strangers because my summers were still the same growing up. And then my junior year, I became a little rebellious. Got caught just messing around at school with a girl, nothing crazy, but that was prohibited. So I got suspended, my parents felt disrespected, and then they said, we're gonna send you to punish school as a punishment. August Martin High School. Was not doing good. But it was the break I needed. It was the freedom that I didn't know that I can get. I can talk back to a teacher. Like I could curse in school. I didn't have to go to all my classes. I did graduate, but I was able to see what I only saw in afternoon specials in real life. Gangs were just like something the news talked about, but I was like, whoa, my friends are in gangs. Like things are different. Like this is dangerous. Who got stabbed? What? This is not nice, but it's real. And this was just a fiction to me because I was always sheltered from this life. So then growing up, I'm like, I graduate. My parents still send me back away. Well, I kind of chose to go away to college, Maryland, but I left my high school girlfriend. So my high school girlfriend, we met at Burger King, and then I went away to Maryland, and then my first year back, she missed me. We used to visit every weekend a little bit. And then she got pregnant. 19 years old, I have a decision to make. Do I become a father or do I go back to school? My father, he came with his words of wisdom and he said, here's $600, go have an abortion. I took that $600, I talked to my girlfriend and we paid our phone bill. We went to a movie and I had my first child. He wasn't active in my life that much, so by the time he noticed she was already with child, he was like, wait, is that the same 600? I was like, yes. So 19 years old, I decided to work. I was like, all right, I gotta do better than I grew up. I don't want to have my kids growing up a certain way. And everybody's telling me I'm a failure. My family's like, I just messed up. I became a statistic. I will never achieve anything. All this money they invested into me, and now I'm gonna just become a failure from now on because I just with child at a young age. Gotcha. No one's going to help me with diapers, wipes. I'm on my own. So I start figuring stuff out because I'm going to prove everyone wrong. Within the next year, my wife is pregnant again. I'm like, uh-oh. I was like, now I'm 20 years old and I have 2 children, 2 daughters. And I can tell right now, I don't know if there's a debate, girls are smarter than men faster.
Yeah, I agree.
My daughters made parenting. No debate. God blessed me with daughters because he knew I could not be a parent at that age. I wasn't ready mentally at all. But my daughters, they understood the potty. Oh, I could pee in here now? It was just perfect. They just got it. They started speaking when they were supposed to speak, sitting up. Their milestones, they were knocking them out probably earlier than they should have. And they were just so brilliant. And I was like, we got this. I got a good job. I started working at the post office. I said, you know what? I'm doing better than everybody said I would do. I got benefits. I got a little car that I can't afford. And I'm like, my credit ain't that bad because, 600 out of what is not that bad. Can't get approved and stuff, but not failing. So I'm kind of I'm dusting my shoulders off. I'm still, competing with the Joneses, but it's just like, I'm doing good. My daughters look good. They're happy. My wife, not yet. My girlfriend, she's doing well. We're living in our own studio apartment. Things are looking good. So good that she decided that we should have another unplanned child. So now my son was born 3 years later. So I said she, of course it was us, blah, blah, blah. Like she didn't do it herself. I get it. So now I'm having a son. So now I have 3 children. And now we're growing up. And now I'm 23 years old. So I'm like, okay, we are not having an opportunity to become adults. Every time I think we're going to get to this point where, we can start catching up to our friends, our peers, we parents again. And our kids are in diapers. Our kids are learning to talk, to walk. And I'm going through this stuff, but I'm getting older. So I'm like, okay, another couple of years of suffering in silence. I told people having kids wasn't the hardest thing. It was the 9 months, which turned into a year if you add postpartum. I was never taught how to be a parent, how to be a father, but I was never taught how to deal with my wife changing throughout those 9 months that caused us so much fights. I would suffer so much in silence that I would be scared to have another kid because when she got pregnant, all I thought about was the fights, the emotional abuse, and all the things I had to keep inside just because every time I brought up my concerns, I was being inconsiderate. I was being heard. I was just like, I was being ignored because I'm not the one holding the baby. She's the one going through it. So shut up, Quentin. Just do your part. Provide, protect. And I'm just there like, okay, so the finish line is she'll have the baby. Then the postpartum came and I was like, all right, she needs 3 months to recover. So my fear of having children was that. We're growing up. I started being called the mind investor because I started taking account for my personal development. Because I'm fighting with my wife. I'm stressed over being a father, but they can't see it. But I'm by myself, waking up at night, just looking at the wall, just thinking about myself in the car. And I'm just like, what am I missing? I'm so stressed. I'm at the post office. I'm working overtime. I'm coming home working full time. But I can't go to anybody. I didn't know who to talk to, didn't know who to go to. If I went to the wrong friend, he's like, man, just cheat on her. I'm like, is that gonna help? I'm like, it's not helping you, bro. I'm like, you paying child support at a young age. That's not cool. And then other people be like, yo, you should try this alternative drug. And then the one thing private school kind of kept me away from, they really throw it in your face not to do drugs for the other reasons. So when people marketed drugs to me, I told people, y'all just didn't sell it to me right because I was oversold in private school of like, if you just do this once, you're going to be crazy. I was like, once? I can't even taste it? So I never did drugs, luckily. However, it was one thing that a lot of my peers were doing, the post office. And then they was like, don't worry, once you get hooked, you get to go to therapy and they pay you still. So I was like, that is not bad. But I never did it, but I didn't know where to vent. So every now and then I would find a YouTube video of somebody and I just started investing in books and in mindsets because I could not control my wife. I could not control the kids, but I had to control myself. So my personal development became my tag, the mind investor, which I am online. And that just became me investing in my mind to be the gift for them by my own personal development. I couldn't go to my family, my friends, so I just went to strangers. Most of these strangers did not look like me. So I'm listening to Tony Robbins, Brandon Burchard, and they're good tools that they give, good strategies. But I couldn't really, Jim Rohn, they were great, but I couldn't really resonate with their story. You lived in a farm, you lived in San Diego. You're coming from a different likelihood than I'm experiencing in the way I'm growing up. And then I found Eric Thomas, Les Brown. And I'm like, I can relate with you. You're broke. You're struggling. You don't know what you're going to eat at night. You're getting divorced. Like, thank you for hearing me through your story, and I could hear myself. So as the mind investor, I started getting things on track. Became an entrepreneur, left the post office, started doing well at home. My kids are getting older. People are like, yo, you're doing pretty good. And I'm like, I think I got it. I think I'm making sense of all this. Everything is starting to align. The vibrations, everything. Friends are coming in, opportunities. And then my wife gets baby fever. I'm like, listen, we've been here before. No. We fight about it for a couple years. And I said, you know what? I'm probably shooting blanks. Let me give you a few months. We'll take out the IUD and we'll try it. And if you don't get pregnant by this certain time, these 3 months, we're putting it back in. She got pregnant within that month. Wow. I was like, why wouldn't I be shooting blanks after 7 years? And I think that's just genetics or something like that, or working out, mindset. I don't know. However, Quintus was born. My fourth child and son, Quintus. So I have 2 girls, 2 boys. Now I'm like, okay, honey, you got to put it back in. We don't want anything else to happen. We're doing okay. And, we're going through this. Quintus came out healthy, full term. And she's like, okay. She missed her appointment. And then when she went back to do her appointment, because now we have our schedules, doctor said, you can't put it back in because you're pregnant. Yeah. Yes. So all these books, all these stuff, and now I'm going back to my library like, okay, so something needs to work, because I'm going to go through another year of what nobody was ever helping me with a year of suffering in silence. But this time I had a team. My children, my top 3 children, they were suffering with mommy throughout that time. And I had to deal with them in a certain way. And I was just like, whoa, I'm not crazy. I used to think I was crazy, but I was like, y'all see it too. Like, y'all are like, my son was like, mommy screamed at me for an apple. And I was like, I know, but it's not your fault. But I got to talk to mommy about that. But she did scream at you because of an apple, that she over-exaggerated something because she didn't know what she was going through. But I used to just do this by myself. And now I'm just like, now they're seeing it. So now it's a really big issue. And then Quinn came. So now it's a family of 5 or a family of 7. And then we're raising Quinn. So I'm just like, okay, going through the milestones. You're going to walk at a certain age. You're going to talk, and everything's going good. Around 2, Quintus started to regress. So I'm like, wait a minute. He was saying daddy, mommy, eating some foods. Why'd he stop? And every time he tried to give him stage 3 or some rice, he started to choke on it. And I'm like, this is weird. This is abnormal. I've never seen this before. I have 3 children. I know the signs. And then all of a sudden, I asked my wife, when's the last time you heard Quintus talk? And it was just like, I don't know. It's been a while. Then we started asking the other siblings. And he's like, he's just saying E, but he's not talking. What's going on? Go to the doctors. Nothing's wrong. Just wait. He's probably just delayed. But I'm like, I got video footage. He was talking. Like, he was moving around a certain way. He was looking at me. Now he's kind of ignoring me, low eye contact. And then doctors tell me that there's nothing, just wait. Okay, see you in 6 months. But then it starts getting worse. And I'm just like, the communication with my son, I'm just like, he just paused. He's growing, but he's paused. And I'm like, something's an issue. And then my other son, I'm like, is my younger son going to catch up to his older brother, because he's going through the milestones? And then he hits it, and he starts to stop talking. He starts to regress. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Doctors, it's happening to now 2 of my children's. What's going on? You know what? Maybe keep them away from the TV a little bit. And there's nothing really wrong, but let's just keep monitoring and let us know. See you in 6 months. I'm like, Okay. I'm getting a little frustrated now because now I have to put my kids in daycare because I'm working, my wife's working. And then the daycare is like, hey, have you ever thought that your kids have autism? I'm like, autism? What is autism? That's something that maybe people deal with, but I've never heard about it, never came to my doorsteps. And then after being there, I started to look it up. Autism, the first thing that came up with the definition of autism was like lifelong is the word that stuck out to me, cognitive disabilities. Lifelong was underlined in the Google definition. I'm like, hold on. My kids do not have lifelong. I went through the year that I'm scared of, which is the 9 months and the 3 months. And the goal was the milestone and the finish line of my kids becoming independent. I've seen it happen 3 times. It's going to happen 5 times because I started at 19 years old. I'm retiring at 50 with grown-up kids that don't need me. But now you just told me something that the possibility that my kids will need me for the rest of my life, which cancels my retirement plans, my lifelong plans, my independent plans for you. I got mad just by the suggestion of autism. So I fought it. And this was just a person just telling me, hey, I think your son has some similarities. But I look it up on YouTube. And I'm looking like, my kid does what this kid does. My kid is lining up toys like this. My kid is making the same sound as this person. And I just did hours and hours of research on what autism traits look like. And then I started realizing, why is why have people tell me something that it could be and the doctors tell me it's nothing? And then I found out all these, you could call it conspiracies, but all these reasons that your child could become autistic. Because now I'm fighting it. Because I'm like, this is not in our family. We never had this. But when I brought up things to my doctor, he fought me and said, listen, everything you're telling me is all false. It's all crazy. It's all nonsense. And he didn't even want to have the conversation, but he's like, I'm not going to stop anything that we're doing. I can't give you any reasons, but if you're not going to follow our ways, then you can't come back and see us. So he was like, I can't even give you a physical because I'm not going to see you if you're going to be bringing up all these other reasons that could have caused their delays and blah, 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 trying to say, what if it is what you gave them? And then I'm not arguing that I'm not going to give them, but what if? Could you please explain to me why somebody else is saying it is? When we realized that, I had to switch doctors. And then I had to switch therapists because I realized that I wanted help, but the people that looked like me in my community, they weren't trying to help me. They were trying to just have me give up and give in. So all these limitations that are on the spectrum, nonverbal, cognitively delayed, occupational skills, physical disabilities, of all these things that you would never do, the people that look like me the most were the ones agreeing with it and telling me you should look into putting your kids into a home. You shouldn't keep them on your own. It's going to be too much stress. You should look into all these different solutions that'll just kind of keep them in the limitations. And then I kept on doing research because I didn't sign up for this. No one signs up for autism or any type of special needs. So I started to go outside my community. If you live in Queens, I went to Bayside and found this therapist. Doesn't look like me, no one looks like me, but all of a sudden gave me hope. She said, I seen somebody that was like your son, and now they're talking and they're totally independent. But the milestone went from maybe 4 years old to 7. And I said, okay, if I start changing my finish lines with my sons, I can still get them to independence. I just need to look at it differently. So all of a sudden, I took my kids to a different neurologist in New Hyde Park. I went to occupational therapies in Corona. I started leaving my people were just telling me to pray about it. It's God's will be done. And it's telling me all these things that's leaving me suffering in silence. But the other people are telling me of possibilities. And I don't need that it's going to work 100%. I just need to know that we're fighting the same fight to get to independence, and I'm with it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I just want to know that I fought. But then to tell me not to fight anymore and it's just God's will was really upsetting me as a father because now I'm a dad. So I broke down this dad. Dad to me was a dad needs to be disciplined and determined. I had to discipline myself with the mindset and be determined that I was going to just do what I can to provide and protect and lead my family. But then when autism came into our lives, I had to, Dad became, nope, not defeating autism. It became don't accept the diagnosis. The diagnosis was too many limitations, too many low expectations. If I accepted that, then I might as well take their opinion and make it my reality, and my kids would just suffer for the rest of their life, as would I. Because it's not just for the kids, it's for the whole parents, and my kids' siblings would suffer. And then once I found out that there were tools, there were strategies, there are solutions that people have, that people are using, that they've seen themselves get from one side to the higher side of independence on the spectrum, I started networking with them. I realized that I can defeat autism daily if I practice these solutions consistently. From their second brain, which is their gut, I practice what they ate more. They made our whole family eat healthier in certain ways. Because I'm like, if you're not supposed to eat this, why are we eating it? I started reading ingredients. Who reads ingredients? Not me. I was never reading ingredients. It tastes good, but now I'm reading ingredients. Now I'm paying attention to how much we sleep, what we take in. And I'm looking at all these other studies. My kids were taking CBD. That was the closest that got into our house. But my kids were taking CBD because there are over 100,000 cases of kids on the spectrum gaining cognitive abilities through CBD, the natural way, expensive, but natural. I didn't know about early intervention. It has an 87% chance of getting your child to become independent because I was never diagnosed, because I didn't have those tools early enough, because the CDC, which also has it documented, that the average white child is diagnosed at 1 year old. The average Black child is diagnosed at 4 to 5 years old. That looks like you miss out on early intervention, which is a big time of your brain developing. You miss out on all these tools that some kids get into so early that by the time they're 4 or 5, they can't even get diagnosed anymore because they've already beat all of them because they had the support they need. So there's communities that look like me that we're just not getting access to the tools and resources early enough, and now we're suffering for much longer because it's a habit. So then autism and bad behavior becomes hard to tell the difference, but it's a big difference that a lot of people just blame autism. And it's like, nope, that's bad behavior, but you didn't know because it's a habit. I realized Social Security, disability is allowed to families who children have cognitive disabilities. But if you don't know how to go through that, then all of a sudden, let's just say that's $500 a month extra, that's $6,000 a year. For 3-4 years, that's $18,000, $24,000. That you just missed out on. That's not gonna retire you, that's not gonna put you in a new home, but that could have helped you get some tools, teach your kids how to swim, since a lot of autistic kids drown every year because they love water, they love to play, but they can't swim. So you could have put your kid in swimming because it's not taught in schools. It's not gonna be in your ELA or special education class. All these things that they know work. The schools that are out there that work, that get your kids to speak, guaranteed by a 90% chance. Cost. I had to teach my kids how to get potty trained at 4 and 5 years old. That was disgusting. But I did it. But I realized after I did it that I could have figured out how to do it because I found somewhere else that wanted to do it that showed me how to do it later. However, it was something that a lot of kids these days do not know how to do. And then it really helps with the kids' lacking of independence if they can't even go to the bathroom by themselves independently. But there's a company right here in Queens that'll charge you about $2,000 virtually and $3,500 to come to your house that'll have your kid potty trained in a week. But who could afford just coughing up $2,000 to $3,500? The options are out there. The tools are out there. People know that there's solutions and strategies, but it's only given to the people who could afford it. So I realized all these things I have to defeat, and I have to provide that there are tools out there. There are tests that can be done on the brain that could show you exactly what you're missing to help connect the dots. And it's been used as for even adults with Alzheimer's. And they're doctors. They're in Babylon, Long Island. They're in California. And this procedure costs about $5,000 just to do the initial test. Is it covered by your insurance? Absolutely not. But can it help? Drastically. I've seen kids just growing. And I'm looking into that test also as well, because I'm like, it works, but it's not covered. Why isn't it covered? Because I forgot where we live and the access to resources that we have. But if more of us knew, then we could fight and advocate for it. So I started to learn autism differently, where defining autism differently is what I started to create with my sons. My sons are now 7 and 8. They won't shut up. They can, they can talk and they can respond, and I'm still working on them, but they're not the same kids. From even teachers, family members are like, what did you do to your kids? And it was what I did daily for years of suffering through tantrums, understanding them, seeing how they see the world. So now I realize what I did is it's not common. And it was because of who I was as the mind investor, developing my mindset to get through life, reading books like Relentless, like Boundaries. Boundaries is my foundation book. Life is what you create and what you allow. So I took the always power position into how am I here? And Les Brown said this one quote, life is a fight for territory. Once you stop fighting for what you want, what you don't want will automatically take over. So I wanted to fight for independence for my children. I wanted to fight for financial freedom for ourselves, for my family, because at the end of the day, if I don't, then I'm just going to get poverty. I'm going to get a child who's going to be dependent for the rest of their life. So my kids have progressed. But what I noticed was when I started following autistic communities, they would do a post in unison with each other that said, parents of children with autism want their child to die before them so they don't have to go through this world without them. I get it. But when I read the comments and I saw over 100,000 likes and the comments saying, this is my prayer every day, I agree, oh my gosh, you've read my mind, I realized I need to do something more for the parents who are giving up. Only thing that separates me and my children becoming independent is I didn't give up. I kept fighting. So I kept on doing things consistently till this day that now I started an organization, I Am I'm Defeating Autism Daily, where I help parents of children with autism develop the tools they need to fight for their children's independence. And that's how I got to where I'm at now. My kids are in the DOE. I just put my name on the ballot and I was elected for the CEC District 28, this District 75 member representative, whatever that title is. So thank you. You can clap. You can clap it up. You can clap it up. I'm serving a 2-year term. So now I'm advocating for my children from the place where they go to school, helping other families and people who are suffering in silence, because now they see that, hey, this other father is on the board now that doesn't care about regular policies and not bought in, where now I'm advocating for the parents because I am the parent, and now I get to fight with the superintendents and the chancellor of why we don't get the funding we need. Why are we always left in the shadows? Why aren't our kids treated the same? Why don't we have better lunch schedules, better pickup times, our busing systems? So now I get to see it from that angle, like, wow, you guys really don't like us. I was like, and it's not don't like us, they don't understand us and they choosing not to. Just put the special ed in the corner and go about our daily lives. Talk about, hey, we're fighting for reading, but not fighting for speaking. It's like there's no reason that kids should still be not using the bathroom in high school. But if nobody's even caring enough and they're not looking into solutions, then we just deal with it, push them to the side and make them graduate and go into the system, which is another suffering. But who's suffering? Us parents. We're suffering because if we let the system do our kids the way they do them, and something happens, if they end up on the news, if they end up missing on the Citizen app, which is like every couple of days, it's like, whose fault is it? Yours. You take the liability, but you trusted the school and the system to help you, and they're going to still blame you and what you didn't do. So everything that I've done has been outside, but I bring it in, and I help other parents know what's there, so those who want to fight can fight. And now, what else? I've also partnered with the Office of Hate Crimes, which is through PATH, the Partners Against the Hate, through the mayor's office this year, because they even liked what I was doing, because this led me from I am dad to realize what I was really scared of: ableism. Ableism is the discrimination that people with disabilities are less than. And that is what the hidden fear is. We don't want our kids to be bullied, but they're 4 times more likely to be bullied. And then you see what happens in the streets. On the train, there was a child that was abused, and it was just because of his disability that other people picked on him. Nobody wants that. So now I'm advocating. I do workshops, raising awareness of what ableism is and how we can all learn what it is, but also learn how to stop it from our workplace, from environments, so we can actually help support the other parents that are worried about it, but they're not talking about ableism. They're just talking about, like, I hope my kid could get through elementary and junior high school. It's safe in elementary. No one's worried about anything. High school, real life, 18 years old, that's when you really start to worry. So all of this is just a smoke screen of what's to come. So I help parents on what's to come, how to protect themselves legally, get a lawyer, become the proxy guardian, because when that child turns 18, if you don't do your right steps, you can't say nothing, and he's suffering by himself. Cops could do what they want to do. So I just decided to be a father and advocate for my children in so many ways, while still being a father to my other kids. Still on the SLT, PTA. My 2 girls are in college right now, and I'm still being that hat because they need me, but we're all on the battle because they need us. And that's kind of my story. Thank you.
Quentin, I love your story. Tell me one question. How did your other children relate to the fact that your other 2 had autism? How did they relate? What was the problems?
Thank you so much for that question. That took me down another rabbit hole. I noticed when I was suffering through silence that my kids did not know how to suffer. They didn't know how to respond or react to their brothers. I also noticed talking to other siblings at older ages that had siblings on the spectrum or special needs, they actually, and this is because this is all different communities, they build a hate for their parents and they build a hate for their siblings. They know that this is their sibling and they're suffering, but you just took mommy and daddy away from them. If I'm going to therapy a few times more a week because of their younger brothers, and now their tantrums, and now we can't go certain places, and now I'm giving them so much more attention, I'm taking it away from the children that I already have. And if I don't pay attention to that over the years, because my last 2 kids, they take more. If I don't pay attention and address it, I'm just going to be building my kids to hate me, mommy, and their siblings, because we just stopped life and it's not their fault. So I had to learn that from other adults who were telling me how they hated their parents and how they, as soon as they became adults, they just ran away, wanted to go to school in another state, wanted to do this. And I'm like, whoa, parents are doing all they can and you still can't do everything. It's like there's still something that you have to do. So knowing that is like what I do with I'm Dad. I try to prepare people. We look at the weather app. If we know if it's going to rain, we kind of dress accordingly. If we know there's traffic, we kind of leave early. If we know that something might happen, we're going to prevent it by doing something in advance. So now that I knew that that was a possibility and I could start seeing it come up, oh my gosh, Dad, he ripped my homework, he colored on my book. And I'm like, damn. And I'm like, I see it building. I need to address it sooner. So now I restructured my home, having more boundaries. My son who likes to draw, I had to give him his opportunities to draw more and let him know, I know when you know what's good and bad, what's autism, what's bad behavior, don't you draw your sister's things. And we had to address that. I had to address things with them and always listen to them. Because at first it was just like, you're just crying. You know your brother's, you know he's going through something. But it became, no. How do you feel? What do you want to do? I connect with them on their own levels. Like, what do you want to do? I make them go out with their friends more. I do things with them separately. When the kids are in school, I'm like, hey, we'll cut school and we'll go to see a movie, an anime movie. We'll do things where you still have your father fully, and you'll understand because I have conversation with them. We see what your brother is going through. Them getting better helps all of us. However, I'm not going to deny you of the father that you had, because that's not your fault. I was taking you to Sesame Place. I was doing all those things, and we still go. I just kind of have a little handcuff on my hand with the other kid, and I don't get in the pool as much. But at least like we're growing towards the things and tools we need. But it was something that had to be addressed because too many people don't address it because they just feel like the kids are just going to deal with it. Just do your homework, do your schooling, do your stuff, and they're just accepting it, but they're suffering. And they don't know how to express it. So I had to express it and learn it from other people and express it for them. So now I can kind of be that father and leader to kind of keep our family together and not make everybody hate each other.
Okay. So, first of all, compelling story. You are a champion in so many different spaces in so many different ways. I want to ask about the suffering in silence and how you're defeating autism daily. What does that look like? And are you still suffering in silence? Two questions. So, how are you
Yeah.
defeating?
So defeating autism daily is I put my finish line to different ages of what I want my children to accomplish. And I'm always trying to exceed those expectations. However, by changing my expectations, I kind of took away a lot of anxiety and depression because now I don't need you to do this by 8. I need you to do this by 10. But if you do it by 9, that'd be great. And I think we're working on you doing it by 8, doing your 8 year, but I'm okay till 10. And if it doesn't happen, then I'm going to evaluate what I could have done differently. So I take responsibility on changing the expectations that are just set from the world. Like I used to feel suffering when I took my kids to the park and I'm looking at other young kids. So like a 3-year-old will have a full conversation with their parent about what they want to eat and stuff. And I'm looking at my children that were mute at that age. And I'm like, wow, that would be great. That would feel so amazing. And now I feel so bad because I'm just like, I can't even experience what people are experiencing. And I'm just like, but I would just have to smile it. And I look at my kid and the other kids would try to talk to my kids at those ages. And my kids would just be like, what you talking about? Like ignoring, like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then they just want to be kids. So I realized that, sometimes what it looked like was me not going places, going to the barber super late and stuff. And then I met other parents who did the same thing, that it was just like you prevent being around other people because you understand that not everybody understands and you don't want to explain. But then I started realizing that I can't do this forever. So I started going back to the barber consistently more. I bought my own clippers because I'm like, you don't like the sound, but why don't you like it? You like to look nice. You like to do this. So it took from holding them in the hands and going through all these struggles to now independently they get haircuts. But it was just like daily, it's just finding out all these levels of independence and consistently doing it. And in some aspects, do it more. And I just do that with them and I force their independence from cleaning up, from vacuuming, from doing things around the house, showing that, hey, I contributed to painting. I was painting and picked up the stuff, made a mess, but it was cool because he contributes. And I feel like by me always keeping them around other people, seeing what's possible, it's helping them see that they can do more. And now I believe in them more. I see the good things more than the bad things. And I feel like that's what helps me defeat it daily. But I'm also listening to a therapist, listening to a neurologist, doing the strategies. I work on their gut health. My kids are taking their vitamins every day, noon, night. They're really focusing on their cognitive abilities. Myself as well. I got it. Like, as we get older as men, we lose a lot of stuff. And if we're not taking our vitamin D, we live in low vitamin D deficiency. There's just certain stuff. You can talk to your doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I do invest a lot into my health when it comes to what I'm missing and what I need. Testosterone decreases at certain ages, but that helps with a lot of the things that we need. So if you're not doing exercising with your legs and stuff, you need to, do something else. But I work out. I take care of my mindset a lot. I have a lot of friends that I try to escape with, just nights and days. And I do a lot of things for myself personally so I could always come back and recharge. But it's all of us doing things consistently and talking about it and just, I guess, being more vulnerable, opening up more. But that's kind of how I take care of myself and them.
Do you still feel that you're suffering in any way or suffering in silence? Or maybe you're way more vocal now. So is there still a suffering?
Yeah. Like I'm not Superman yet. Like I've done a lot, but then there's still sometimes that I'll feel something and I'm like, really? We're going back? So it'll be like on their development a lot. I'll be like, really? We passed this. And I'm like, but I know it's there. And then it's just like, no matter what you do, it's like you always have that little voice talking about like, is this really gonna work? Like, are you really just, fighting something for no reason? Or are you like when I'm going against doctors and therapists, even my wife's I'm like, what? He's a medical professional. And I'm like, I know, but I can't accept it. I gotta fight it, and I gotta find another one to combat his diagnosis or combat his limitation. And then when I find somebody, I feel better. But it's something that I feel like it's like my parents were very devoted Christians, but they always need to go to church to refuel. I continually refuel because it's going to be burnouts. It was like my son had a tantrum the other day when I was gone, and they're FaceTiming me so I could like tell him I'm coming home. You better stop it. And it was like I asked my son because he was like, Dad, he was fighting me and this and that, and it was all for nothing. But I was just like, I was like, Daddy always does this. I said, when's the last time he had a tantrum like this? They said, like 2021. I said, this used to be every other day. And now you just told me 2 years, Quentin Jr., my first son, relax. I said, we'll see what triggered this. We'll see what happened, what we could adjust. Let's evaluate what really went on here so we could prevent it. But that's 2 years, little. Like, come on. Like, we did something that we didn't have a tantrum like this for 2 years. We're on a winning, like we're progressing, we're winning. And when he thought about it, reframed it, was like, well, I guess if you put it like that, but you know, he's bigger and stronger now, so it was more of a fight for him. But it was just like suffering in silence. Yeah, I think pain is what kind of pushes me more. And the pain sometimes I just think about I can suffer and maybe get out of it faster than somebody else. So I kind of just help other fathers, other parents, just like that are suffering and holding on to it, just get out of it faster. Because you're not gonna it's not gonna be raindrops and Skittles. We're gonna suffer, but use that.
Actually, just a few words of encouragement. I feel like, not every kid, I'm a single mother, not every kid has a diagnosis, but I do believe every kid has special needs. There, there
Facts.
are so many different stages. And I mean, like every year I'm like, I mastered this. I got them the double digit age. And then they turn to teenager and you're like, okay, here we go again. So it really is just an ongoing, growth process. And, just keep, being a champion, because I do think that you're making a huge impact on the lives of other families. And even me knowing now, hearing what you're saying, I realize now that I have some autistic students, and you gave me some amazing resources. And now I have a few different avenues that I can go to really help them.
Thank you.
Paul, did you have something? Yes, Quentin, thank you so much for sharing your story. If there wasn't so many people here, I would be crying right now. Thank you for being, I don't even want to say a black father, a father in general. Thank you, because you're going through a lot. And that prompted me to ask, I got two questions, a two-part question for you. The first one is, I believe you said it was ableism.
Yes.
Okay, have you made an attempt to try to get that into the American Disabilities Act?
I believe in some ways it already is. It's just it's not promoted as much. So when I became part of the PATH organizations through the mayor's office, it was something that was still like, when I brought it up, they were like, wait, what is that? And some people had to Google it. It was like, oh snap, it's there. It's like, it's there, it's there, it's everywhere. It's just not presented, and it's sometimes confusing, and people kind of like just don't even know. So they just think discrimination against disabled people, and they're like, oh, that's just discrimination against disabled people. But ableism shows up in so many other ways. It shows up in when the curriculum is set, how it's ignoring a whole community, how like laws are made in different organizations and bylaws and things. And it's so easy to ignore that there are people that are looked at as less than in work environments and all these things. And that's ableism. But some of the brightest and smartest people do it just accidentally because they're never told that, oh snap, I'm doing this. So it's there, and it's people like fighting for it, but they're not getting heard. So I feel like more of us need to just become aware of it and speaking up about it, because it's something that it's an ism. But when people hear racism, they hear classism, they go run with those, like, hey, let's fight this fight. And you see what's going on in other parts of the world and terrorism and all that stuff. So those other isms kind of just get a lot of more light. But no matter where you go in any country, and the most thing that I see in the D75, 811Q schools is just that I went to a father's breakfast last week, and it's just like ableism, autism, special needs, that has no color. I've come together with Asian, with Indian, with white, and we're talking the same conversation because we're all on the same boat. Our kids are doing the same thing, and it actually, in a weird way, brings us together where we're not looking at political beliefs, religious beliefs. I don't care what you eat, where you live. It's just like, how can we get our kids to become independent? And I've built so many relationships with people of so many different backgrounds that we would have never met, because I would not be in that type of place. And my life doesn't go there. But now, because of this, we are able to connect and see past the stigmas that the world has always created us to see. And I feel like ableism is there, and I try to make people aware of it, but it's there. It's on the act, and it's everywhere. It's just not addressed. And maybe we could do things more to address it more.
Got it. Understood. And hopefully, this panel, because we do, regular podcasts, we can also do some research and bring it up to present it to the community as well. My second part of the question is, I heard you mention therapy, but it was more for the children or, your two sons. How is therapy, or are you in therapy yourself or your wife?
Well, I be trying to fight my wife to go to therapy. She's like, I don't need no therapy. She's still on that. She's like, I ain't crazy. I'm like, it's not for being crazy. It's to help you get past things. Like, so she kind of steals from me what I bring home. Okay. And she's just like, oh, that's a good tool. I'll do this. I'm like, you can't keep doing that. You need to do your own. So I've been to certain workshops, and I've had therapists myself throughout the years. And it's always hard to find a therapist that can understand me fully. So I kind of just give them, and they just do what they can. And I went to this one therapeutic experiential workshop called Momentum Education. So they took you through a lot of aspects of seeing yourself. And the first workshop I went to with them was like, it brought me awareness. And I started to see myself and my relationship with my parents and how it reflected on me. And it held me so much more accountable for myself and how I was showing up. So my expectations changed from everybody else, and it set more expectations on myself, and realized I had the power to change my reality based on how I became more aware. Then it took me into facing my fears. Through another experiential workshops, we have our counselors. So it's very therapeutic, but it's not therapy, but it was something that I used to kind of help me advance and excel, but also it made me so much more vulnerable. It made me see vulnerability as a superpower. So my suffering in silence when my children were autistic, going through autism, the worst, my best friends didn't know. Everybody just thought I was too busy because I didn't come anywhere and I didn't go places. No one knew that I was suffering because if I could get them to smile in one picture after 100 pictures, that's the picture we post online. Everybody's like, what a beautiful family. Y'all are great. I'm just like, you didn't know the stress that we went through. It took us 2 hours to get that one picture. But it was like, that's what we did. And we were living that life, doing that, hoping that we could just snap out of it and stuff like that. But then when I realized I was doing myself a disservice and I was doing other people, I posted my son graduating from kindergarten, and I told his story in a post. And that post started getting shared, and people started hitting me up like, oh my gosh, my child is going through this. My son is, I need to hear that. That's so inspiring. And that's when I realized like I was hiding from everybody, thinking I needed to, and I wasn't gonna be accepted. But when I opened up, that's been my journey. So I used to be like, God, why me? What did we do wrong? Blah, blah, blah. Because I had the church mindset. And then it was just like, why not me? Like, you had to choose me. I needed to be the one to stand up. I know you said black father, and he was like more fathers. So I stand up for fathers, but black fathers needed me to stand up because I did not see enough in my community. I didn't see enough of me to relate to. So instead of me looking what I couldn't find, I just became that. So I had to become the person that had to lead the way to awaken other people to see that we are more powerful. We have more access to tools. We can do more. Our kids don't have to suffer. We don't have to suffer. And I needed to be a black father to do that in my community. So more of us the ones that do find tools don't have to always leave and go support every other community to get the resources. We could do it in our own.
But thank you. I appreciate it for you stepping up like that.
Yeah, Quentin, it's really powerful. I'm just gonna give you the last question. I know we've got to wrap up and keep going. What would you recommend to especially a black or brown family when they suspect something's wrong? Where do you think that they should go to seek out more resources around autism?
Okay, well, I would definitely say go to my website, I was like,
Good, good, very good.
It's a good place to start.
www.iamdads.com. What I share with people is a test that my neurologist created, which is a parent's test that they can take, and you're just answering 30, 50 question questionnaire, but it'll give you some help with just understanding where, based off of you as a parent, where your child is falling on the spectrum. Like, severe, moderate, high functioning. But when you take that test, you can print it out, you can get PDF. It helps you now advocate when you go to the doctor. So I don't care what the doctor tells you, who's going to see your kid for 30 minutes, an hour, and you're going to go back and live with your child for the next 6 months. You get to say, listen, I hear you, but this is where I'm at. So if you don't see, this is what I see on a daily basis. This is what I'm going through. They can understand better because now you have some documentation helping you. And then I kind of just point out the directions and tools where, you got to get evidence for your own opinion. Tell my kids that you can have an opinion about anything, but you try to get 3 things to back up your opinion because it will support you no matter what you believe. So I kind of help parents just do that because the one thing that we all deal with, we don't know if we're right or wrong. Like, maybe we kind of like, maybe he is just acting up. Some people go to abuse, unfortunately, because they're like, I could just beat it out of a kid. And it's just like, that's not cool. But if you knew that there could have been something else, I say start with that test. Start with that test, get a confirmation with yourself that, hey, based on what I'm saying on this questionnaire, it's coming up that this could be a possibility. So now maybe I need to change the way I'm looking at it and look at it differently, and then now take those steps from there. I would say that would be the first thing I share with anybody.
That's so great. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
One of the things that I hear consistently with all the guests today is being responsible and accountable. And especially with the autism, you're now being accountable and responsible for the entire family, not just yourself in some other situations. So thank you for being a demonstration of that. Thank you for the learning that you provide in your sharing is so very, very powerful. And we're definitely going to have you back to talk a little bit more because there's so many aspects of this autism that I think people are not aware of and don't know what to do with. And so you provided a huge vacuum of information that we now can have some reference points. So thank you so much, Quentin.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.